Hey everybody, I'm back for another October Horror Fest, and in this video I'm going to be talking about a movie that I've actually already done a review for, but it's one movie that I watch every single year, and it's one movie that I always, it doesn't really feel like October without me revisiting it, and so I thought that I would, do another video on this film. It's another remake to a classic horror film, and like I said, it's one that I've grown up watching. The movie I'm going to be talking about was released in 1999, and that is The Haunting. And like I said, I've done a video on this before, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the story, but I do want to talk a bit more about what I think about the film and just why I always enjoy watching it. So the movie stars Lili Taylor, and Taylor, and her character is named Eleanor, and she is a very frail, very sensitive woman, and she's about to lose her apartment that she's living in. She can just no longer pay for it, and you find out that she used to live there with her mother, and her mother was sick and bedridden, and she pretty much spent all of her time taking care of her, washing her, cleaning her, just feeding her, just all this stuff. And after she died, I believe it's her sister who is the one that actually is trying to get the house, and get Eleanor's apartment and sell it. She apparently owns it, I believe, and Eleanor is just basically paying money to them, and they're basically kicking her out, and she needs money, just to keep living there. Well, she ends up getting a phone call from Liam Neeson's character, and he tells her to look in the newspaper, and there's a wanted ad for people with sleep deprivation, or people that are, having trouble sleeping. And he basically tells her that he's going to try a study with a group of people in this house called Hill House. And if they stay there for a certain amount of time, then they will get $900 is how much they're getting. And of course, Eleanor, she wants to do it, not only because of her sleeping problem, but she also has enough money to pay back whatever bill she needs to, to keep her apartment. So she ends up driving there, and the house itself, it's like a castle. It is huge. The house is very, very old. There's a lot of carvings in it. There's so many different, there's animal carvings of lions and stuff. There's also a lot of children carvings. There's carvings of children, like little cherubs and little angels and things like that. And there's different rooms. There's so many different doors, different bedrooms. Everything is very elegant. And it pretty much looks like a, I guess what people would call a mansion. Only the house was built like 120 years ago before the film, takes place. So it'd be like a mansion, back then. And there's different trap doors and things like that. She's also there's also two other people in the film. There's Theo, who's played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's kind of a very preppy woman. She wears the nicest clothes. You can tell she's kind of a rich city girl type. And then there's Owen Wilson's character named Luke, who's kind of this down-to-earth type guy who's always cracking jokes, and he likes to make people laugh and whatnot. As the film goes on, you actually find out that Liam Neeson's character is actually not a sleep deprivation a doctor, or however you call it. Has actually brought these three people to the house basically to scare them. He is actually trying to study what makes people scared, and what can frighten someone, and how somebody will react to being scared by something. And so in a way, he's kind of using them, and he's he's joined by two of his colleagues. But right as the film begins, of course, it's not just him that wants to be doing the scaring, it's the house itself. He tells the story about how the house was built. It was built by this man named Hugh Crane, and he lived there with his wife, and he was very, very wealthy. And so he built this entire house so that he could have him and his wife and his children could live there. Unfortunately, every child that they tried to have ended up dying at birth. But he continued to build a house, build it up, I guess for the family that he will never have. And then his wife ended up dying, and you will find out a little bit later how she dies. And of course, as the story goes on, things begin happening to the house. Eleanor ends up becoming drawn to the house. Like, she feels like that she belongs there. Like, it's her home away from home in a way. And that is kind of I guess a little hint to what goes on near the end of the film. But that's as far as I'm going to get. Now, this was one movie that I grew up watching, so it's got some nostalgia in it for me. I remember being very, very creeped out by it when I first saw it. It's really not that creepy now, but back when I first saw it, I thought it was a pretty good one. There's some pretty creepy moments. Probably one of my favorite scenes in it is this shot in the back when Eleanor is laying in her bed, and the bedpost comes down over her like a spider. I remember when I first saw the cover of this movie, my aunt had it, and she goes, "Oh yeah, this is the movie where the bedpost comes down over her like a spider. It's really scary." And I saw this back when I was I wasn't too young. I think it was about maybe 11 or 12, maybe. So it didn't scare me, but it did creep me out a little bit. So yeah, I definitely think that this is one movie that recommend everyone checking out. The movie was done by Jan De Bont, who is the director of Speed and Twister. So you know that so this is more of like a horror film with some action elements. There's some really cool special effects in it. If you've seen the original story, The Haunting of Hill House, the scenes where the entity is banging on the doors and stuff like that, that is in the movie as well, but it's done, of course, it's done a lot more. There's also one scene where a part of the house sort of comes to life, and there's two windows, and they're in the shape of eyes, and they actually become two eyes, like looking down on Eleanor. So there's some pretty cool special effects in it for the time. This movie was made back in 1999, so back then CGI and stuff was, still getting into movies, and it was actually realistic. I think CGI was pretty realistic in the 90s, especially when it comes to movies like Twister, where the entire tornado was mostly made out of the computer, and how realistic it looked. I think that there's some good realistic effects in this one. So, but the CGI, they don't overdo it at all. This movie's mostly about suspense, and is about building up characters and things like that. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen The Haunting, I definitely recommend checking it out. I think it's a good sort of more modern horror film, I must say, since it came out in the 90s. But yeah, so if you guys have seen The Haunting, definitely let me know what you think about it, and let me know if you guys are planning on checking it out. But anyway, guys, that is it for my review. As you guys can kind of tell, I'm talking more about more modernized horror films, and that's only because I have nostalgia towards these movies because I grew up watching them. They were new when I was just getting into horror. So what I thought would be kind of fun to do is, I think starting next week, the week leading up to Halloween, I'll probably talk about some of my favorite classic movies, movies that I haven't talked about. But it all depends, I might change it up a bit, because I don't want to talk about the same classic films, and I don't want to talk about, the same movies, and, because those are movies that I watch every year. Every year I watch classic movies. I watch Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Cujo. I watch all those movies. So when I go down to do a review, or I talk about a movie, I want to talk about one that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, or one that I think is underrated. And I think that some of the films that I've talked about are underrated, in my opinion. But probably starting next week, I might change it up, do some more classic horror films. But also, I just want to change it up a bit. So yes. Anyway, guys, I've babbled. So thank you guys for watching my review. Like I said, check out the movie if you haven't, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.